Deep within a forest, a family lives in a small cabin, sustaining themselves on what they hunt and cultivate. Helena is an exceedingly intelligent and brave child, skilled in tracking, able to discern subtle signs of an animal's presence and predict its movements. Her father, Jacob, often accompanies her on hunts, while her mother, Beth, is constantly irritated with her. One morning, her mother calls out to her, but Helena ignores the summons and chooses to go hunting with her father, fully aware that her return will mean double chores as punishment from her mother. Together, they walk slowly through the forest, find tracks, and follow the trail until they locate their prey. Jacob hands Helena a weapon and reminds her that if she misses, they will go hungry that night. Helena tries to focus, to aim, but just as she's about to shoot, the animal darts away. She can't understand what went wrong, especially since she made no sound. After some reflection, she realizes the animal must have scented them. They return home to find her mother has prepared the fire for cooking, but seeing them return empty-handed, she angrily extinguishes the flames. Her father calls Helena over and presents her with her reward for the day, a rudimentary tattoo. Helena sits still, observing without complaint or a sign of pain as her father marks her. She asks her father why her mother is always so angry with them, to which he replies that her mother cannot see happiness the way they do. One afternoon, while gathering fruit, she hears a noise from the river. Approaching cautiously, she sees her mother has fallen from the boat and is being helped up by her father. At night, they play an instrument made by her father, but it doesn't take long before Beth scolds her so she stops playing. Yet Helena gives her father a knowing glance and goes off to sleep. The next morning, they wake up to hunt, but first check the traps to see if they've caught anything. Helena is shocked to find only a paw. She asks her father where the rest of the animals is, and he teaches her a harsh lesson about sacrificing what must be sacrificed to survive. Another afternoon, while Helena is preparing food, she hears a noise in the storeroom. She investigates and sees her father hiding his weapon through a crack. After he emerges, she asks when she can have her own weapon at home like him. He replies that she can when she becomes as good a hunter as he is. That night, wolf howls echo through the forest. Helena wakes up and opens the door. Outside, she meets a wolf with its cub. She suggests to her father that maybe they could give the leftovers to the wolves, but he imparts another lesson. There's nothing purer than the instinct to survive. He then asks what she would do if she were starving. Would the wolves be her prey? Helena doesn't answer, and her father tells her they would indeed be her prey. He hands her the weapon to finish off the wolf, but she hesitates, wondering about the cub's fate. Her father illustrates the bright future of the cub, which will suffer and die. Still, Helena can't shoot, so her father performs the deed himself, ending the wolf and its cub. He then tells her something that will forever echo in her memory. You must always protect your family. Another morning, her father leaves for a solo hunting trip, promising to bring her a surprise upon his return. He leaves, and Helena is left alone with her mother. The next morning, her father hasn't returned yet. While Helena is passing time, she hears a noise that grabs her attention. Out of the trees comes a man on a vehicle. He explains he's been lost for hours and can't find his way back to the trail. But Beth interrupts, quickly moving towards the vehicle, saying they must leave before he returns. Beth grabs Helena and they both hop on the vehicle, demanding the man to take them away immediately. The man is confused and says he can't just take her because she says so. Suddenly, a precise shot in the neck causes the man to fall to the ground. Jacob, Helena's father, has returned. Beth immediately starts the vehicle, but Helena struggles to break free to return to her father. During the scuffle, she snatches a necklace from Helena and drops it. Then she lunges at her daughter, who won't stop struggling, and hits her with a rock, knocking her unconscious. Later, Helena wakes up in a room surrounded by electric lights, gadgets, and a clock. Soon, Officer Clark appears, trying to calm her down, explaining that her mother is in the next room. She asks about her father, but Clark says he isn't there, and there's no longer anything to fear. Hearing this, Helena rushes out to find her mother and pleads to go back home, but Beth explains it wasn't their home. Years ago, Jacob kidnapped her and took her to the forest, but now he can't be near them anymore. Angry, Helena shouts that she's lying until Officer Clark approaches to lock her in a room. Helena tries to leave, but the doors are locked, and at that moment she sees her necklace hanging by the window. She approaches, realizes the window is open, quickly exits, puts on her necklace, and sets out to find her father. Outside, everything is new to her. The lights, the cars, and even the people. Suddenly, she hears a familiar sound, and in a dark alley, sees her father. But as they prepare to return home, the police arrive, cornering Jacob. Jacob hands Helena a handmade instrument, promising to come for her. She shouts to the police that he's done nothing wrong, but they order her to step away from the girl and for Jacob to lie down. Jacob tries to escape, but the officers catch him while Helena watches everything. The case gains national notoriety as Jacob, dubbed the Swamp King, had kidnapped Beth and held her captive for 12 years until finally escaping with the daughter born during her captivity. After the trial, Beth struggles to adjust to normal life and is rarely seen in public. Tragically, she dies in an apparent suicide. Meanwhile, Helena starts a new life with her daughter Marigold and husband Stephen. She enjoys spending afternoons in the park with her daughter, teaching her about different types of trees and animals she knows. But there are marks she can't forget, like the tattoos Jacob made when she was a child. One afternoon, while watching the clouds, her daughter asks when she can get one of those tattoos. Helena responds not until she's 82. Her daughter questions why she got it so young, and Helena wishes she hadn't. Heading back home, they meet Stephen, ready for a picnic. Helena suggests they go ahead and she'll catch up. But Stephen knows she never shows up when they try this. At the picnic, people ask Helena about her tattoos, and she lies, saying she got them in San Francisco as a teenager. When asked about her parents, she lies again, saying her father worked in insurance and her mother sometimes did telemarketing. Helena has decided to leave her past behind and hasn't revealed the truth to anyone. At night, after reading her daughter a bedtime story and going to bed elsewhere along the road, Jacob is being transported with another inmate. Unnoticed by the ever-vigilant officer, he spits out a hook to free his handcuffs and extends an invitation to the guard with a quick attack. He then borrows the gun and shoots the driver, orchestrating a slight alteration in their travel plans. The next morning, after returning from work, Helena finds several police patrols in front of her house. She rushes out of the car in search of her daughter, but the police reassure her it's not about Marigold. They inform her that her father and another prisoner escaped the previous night while being transported across state lines to a penitentiary. They ask if he's tried to contact her recently and if she knows where he might head. Helena responds that her father doesn't know where she lives, her last name, or anything about her. Then Stephen arrives and asks Helena what's happening. She feels obliged to reveal that her father is Jacob Holbrook, known as the Swamp King, who has just escaped. The fact that Helena has hidden the truth and doesn't know if he might appear leads Stephen to take their daughter with him and contact Helena later. The police need to see Helena's phone and any computer she uses so they can hopefully find her father. But Helena assures them if he disappears into the wild, they won't see him again. Later, Helena calls Stephen, who informs her he's staying at a hotel for the night and won't take their daughter to school, just in case. Helena tries to explain the situation, but Stephen says he must go and hangs up. Then Helena goes down to the basement where she hides a box with old belongings. Inside are Jacob's handmade instrument, her necklace, and a knife he gave her, saying, "A true hunter needs a real knife." That night, Helena dreams she walks out of her house, following her younger self to a lake where she immerses herself. Meanwhile, Jacob and the other inmate are picked up in a car near a gas station. The next morning, Helena receives a visit from Officer Clark, who had tried to contact her, but Helena wasn't answering his calls. Helena dislikes the officer's sudden appearance, but he's concerned and asks how her husband took the news. Helena says not well, but assures him they'll recover. It's just a matter of time. Helena is not very communicative, so Clark understands he should leave. Outside, he assures her no one will associate her with Jacob, as she hasn't appeared in the press, and he just wanted to make sure she wasn't worried about things. He also mentions that when she was 13, he thought they might become a small family of 3, though Helena replies they were never 3, as her mother didn't love her because she saw Jacob in her. But Clark assures her that her mother did love her and that he still cares and misses her. At that moment, an officer arrives, saying the FBI wants her at their office. They inform her they've found her father's body within state borders, and they suspect he was heading to cross into Canada. The driver lost control, fell asleep, and the car crashed into a tree and caught fire. They suffered unrecognizable burns, and they believe he had an accomplice they are now searching for. Among the deceased, there's certain Jacob is there, identified by the 3 gold teeth he had when Helena lived with him. Officer Clark asks if she's okay, but she replies that for her, her father died 20 years ago. Days later, Stephen returns home with their daughter, who mourns Helena's father's loss. But Helena assures her he hasn't been her father for a long time. Stephen wishes Helena had told him the truth from the start, but she insists that if she had, they wouldn't have their daughter. Surely Stephen would never have dated her. But she asks him to pretend she's a better person than she believes. She could have trusted him and found someone to help her every day, and to whom she could explain all her strange tattoos. However, Helena assures him that the best never happens, no matter how much we wish for it. At night, while Marigold sleeps, Stephen asks Helena to let him get closer to her. Then he leaves to do some work at the office, saying he'll probably sleep there. He gets into his car, but just as he's about to leave, Helena stops him. She explains her full name is Helena Holbrook, daughter of the so-called Swamp King. She tells him she sometimes escapes alone at night because she feels trapped, as if she doesn't truly belong to any world. She has trouble trusting people because everyone tells her the person she believed in the most was actually a monster. She explains that the tattoo on her neck was the first her father made after her first death, the one on her arm was made when she failed, and the one on her stomach is where he taught her to swim. Little Shadow is what Helena used to call herself. From that day on, Helena decides to start trusting people more, starting with Clark. So one day she takes Stephen and her daughter to visit him. Upon arrival, Clark is delighted to meet Marigold, and Helena assures him she'll do everything possible to get her to call him grandfather. While taking Marigold to see the horses, Helena reviews photographs of herself as a child with Clark and her mother. Outside, she has memories of her mother working in the garden. During the meal, Clark takes photographs to show Marigold and tells them about Helena's difficult childhood. Outside, he tells her that Jacob twisted many of his people's beliefs to suit what he needed. He warns her that the tattoo on her hand means possession in Ojibwe, not family, and she shouldn't confuse the two. On the way back home, Marigold falls asleep while Helena holds Stephen's hand, showing she's starting to trust him more, when suddenly, a one-legged coyote crosses their path. Later, while they sleep, Helena has nightmares about her father and wakes up agitated, so she goes to look for Marigold to sleep with them. In the morning, she discovers dirt on the floor, which she finds suspicious. She goes out to check but finds nothing until she returns and sees her daughter with dirt-stained shoes. She asks her to clean her feet when entering the house. Stephen has a conference in Detroit that afternoon, so he will drop Marigold off at school. He says goodbye to Helena, saying he'll probably be home late. Later, she goes to the market for her shopping, and suddenly the mother of one of her daughter's friends approaches to ask if they could get together one day. However, a sound catches Helena's attention. It's the same sound the instrument her father made used to produce. So Helena goes to investigate who's making it, but finds no one. That afternoon, she encircles her property with bells to alert her of anyone. Helena closes all the windows and secures the door. At night, Marigold does her homework, but Helena is so consumed with worry that she decides to put her in bed and reads her a story until the child falls asleep. While reviewing photographs of her mother, Helena recalls how she once made her a doll with hair just like hers, Suddenly, the sound of a bell startles her. She quickly opens her closet and grabs the knife her father gave her. The bell rings again, prompting Helena to head out with a flashlight to investigate. She ends up finding a rabbit, but then she hears a noise inside the house and dashes back in. It turns out to be Stephen, who gets startled seeing Helena with a knife. He asks whose blood it is, and Helena tells him it's from the rabbit. Stephen suggests it might be better to call the police instead of running around in the dark with a knife. He reassures her that Marigold is asleep, and that they will also keep the doors locked and put a patrol to watch. Later, unable to sleep, Helena calls Clark to inform him that the rabbit she found was bleeding from the head, as if someone had killed it first and then placed it in the snare. Clark wants to believe it was injured in some other way, but Helena feels her father is still alive. She tells him about the night they were found coming out of the woods. She was so scared because he wasn't there with her, but then he appeared, and she believes he has returned. Clark tells her she must get him out of her head forever, but she's not sure she can do that. The next morning, she starts an investigation on escaped prisoners and found dead bodies, and also researches the accomplices in the prison escape who are still missing. Suddenly, she hears her daughter calling her, screaming. She rushes upstairs only to find that her daughter can't find her backpack, but then in a model her daughter has, she sees 2 twig dolls identical to the ones she had as a child. Helena asks Marigold where she got them, and her daughter replies she thought Helena had made and placed them there. She inquires if the habitat has always been in her room, to which Marigold responds yes. This reinforces Helena's suspicions that her father is still not dead. She then takes her daughter out of the house and drives her to school. Afterward, she goes to Stephen's office to give him a kiss and asks him to pick up Marigold after school. Stephen questions why, and she tells him there's something she has to do but can't tell him what it is. She asks him to trust her and promises to call him when she returns. She drives her car deep into the forest and spends the night there. At dawn, she walks until she reaches a river which she crosses with a canoe. She arrives at a waterfall which she remembers her father had gifted her and which she had named after herself. After walking for quite some time, she returns to her childhood home. Inside, the house seems abandoned. Helena goes deep inside and leaves the 2 twig dolls until suddenly her father appears behind her. They go for a walk, and Helena asks how he found her, to which Jacob replies he never lost sight of her. They reach a place where they used to camp during the summer to watch the sky and count shooting stars. Jacob asks Helena how she knew he was still alive, and she replies it was because of the 3-legged coyote. Like him, her father sacrificed his 3 teeth to escape. Then she asks if she told anyone else her theory, and she replies no, though she wishes she had brought Marigold with her. However, Helena believes he already knows enough about her since he's been visiting her house secretly. Then he shows her a canoe and tells her it's to take all 3 of them to Canada to be a family again. But Helena assures him she already has one. She has a daughter and a husband with whom she's built a life together. Jacob asks if she's happy with her new life, and Helena confesses not always. When she was 4, she could close her eyes and know where she was by the sound of the water, by the smell of the trees, and by the feel of the ground under her feet. Jacob mentions that her life there was perfect. Then Helena remembers the day she saw her father with her mother and thought he was rescuing her from the water. The truth is, her mother had tried to escape, and her father was punishing her for it. But then Jacob assures her he didn't kidnap her, but they ran away together, and he ended the life of the man trying to hit the motor. But Helena contradicts him, saying he would never miss. Helena assures him this is where it all ends, and although she shouldn't have come there, she's glad she did. She asks him please not to approach her family again, and with one last hug, she says goodbye to her father. But on the way back, she encounters Clark, who arrived there because Stephen called him worried. Clark had a hunch after what she told him the night before, so he made it there. He also asks if her father is there, to which Helena replies yes, but he's gone. And that's when Jacob appears, pointing a gun at Clark. Clark also draws his gun, but Jacob manages to shoot him, making him fall to the ground. Helena runs to help him while Jacob takes his gun and concludes he must have said something that piqued her curiosity enough to wander around there. Then he takes Helena's knife from her belt and drags her across the ground by her hair until he throws her down a hole in the ground, mentioning he'll soon be back with Marigold. Down there, Helena remembers how her father used to punish her the same way, putting her there as a child, but her mother would appear with a rope to rescue her. Now that she's big enough, she manages to brace her feet and back to climb up. After getting out and reaching Clark, she mourns his loss, promises to come back for his body, and then returns to the storeroom where her father hides his weapon. Luckily, it's still there with some ammunition, and after reloading it, Helena hurries back to her family. As her father has taken the canoe, she runs through the forest as fast as she can, cutting the path until she manages to catch up with him. Out of breath, she manages to aim and shoot, hitting the paddle, but just as she's about to shoot again, Jacob dives into the water. Helena finds traces of his blood and, remembering everything her father taught her, enters a swamp, when suddenly her father appears from the ground and shoots her. The wound is only superficial, but he asks his daughter what good it will do Marigold if her mother ends up rotting at the bottom of the swamp. Helena is handcuffed, and her father forces her to take him to the boat she arrived in. As they approach, Helena stops at the edge of a cliff and tells her father she now understands how brave her mother was. Despite having the chance to escape, she decided to stay to protect her. When Jacob asks Helena what she would do for Marigold, she replies she would die for her. At that moment, Helena walks too close to the edge and falls. When her father approaches to help her, she embraces him tightly, and as a result, they both fall down the cliff. Helena is the first to wake up, covered in blood and with injuries. Near her is one of the weapons, but as she's about to take it, she's surprised by her father. However, she struggles until she manages to reach the gun. At that moment, Jacob realizes he also has his near, so he tries to buy time to reach it. Then Helena, remembering the lesson he gave her, tells him she will always protect her family. At that instant, she shoots, ending her father's life. Finally, Helena manages to reach the boat and rows back to her home in the city.